Welcome back to the Women's Lounge. It's Wednesday and you know what time it is. I'm your host, Emiliana and welcome to the Women's Lounge. This is a place where we talk feminism, politics, culture, and all the things that impact our daily lives. So in today's episode, we're discussing a lot of things, but also we have the League of Women Voters joining us today. So we've got a special guest in Carla Fuentes from the League of Women Voters, but let's get into it. Today, we're talking about three things we need to know. The first one is, of course, the No Kings protest that happened just last week across the country, where the estimates are between 5 to 7 million of people that went out to the streets to protest. What was it? It was the No King's Day protest. Why does it matter? It matters because we are on day 22 of the government shutdown. And the people need to take to the streets. The people need to talk about what is happening. And so I'm glad that a lot of people showed up to protest, including myself. I'm also excited that protests were held across the country, not just in DC, not just in Los Angeles, not just in the usual places. And I know that a lot of people stepped up, volunteers that self-organize, and that is always nice to see. I know that some folks said that they weren't well attended or that there would be violence. None of that happened. They were very well attended. There was no violent protests out there. And for those that are saying that we are anti-government as protesters, I'm going to say, where was that energy on January 6th? Where was the energy of sending out the guard on January 6th? And those folks did attack the Capitol and were going and looking for Nancy Pelosi, looking for AOC, invoking violence. So no King's protest. I heard they're going to organize a second one, so I'm here for it and I'm ready for it. So here we go. We're talking also moving into the escalation of deployed troops. We're talking about ICE. ICE has escalated the war on immigrants and in our communities. There's a report that came out that over 170 U.S. citizens have also been picked up by ICE, which means that there are no warrants. It is lawless, that masked men are picking up people with no due process, violating civil rights. So keep in mind, civil rights are not just for citizens of the United States. They are for people living within the United States. We aren't lawless, or we're not supposed to be. So we are going to continue to keep an eye on that. And the main thing we're seeing is that we're asking people to document, to continue to document, because at some point folks are going to be held accountable, and we've got to make sure that we have documented what is happening on the streets, because what is happening on the streets is not necessarily what is portrayed in the main media. So making sure that that is happening across the country. As we know, a federal judge said that the National Guard could be deployed to Portland. The National Guard from California would be deployed in Portland. And what we've seen on the ground is that these protests are not violent, are not what is being portrayed or even talked about by the current administration. So continue to document, of course, safely. Make sure you are safe before you start document. Don't interfere, but definitely document. Coming up, my next guest is Carla Fuentes from the League of Women Voters. She joins us today, and speaking about League of Women Voters, we're talking about protecting the ballot. What's at stake? So here we are. Carla, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to share about the League, a little bit about our Greater LA local chapter, and also just learn more from you.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about, most people don't know this. I definitely didn't know, and I was way beyond my 30s, 40s. I'll stop there. But I didn't know what League of Women Voters did. And it's in 100 years of an organization that works on voting rights. Talk to me a little bit about what League of Women Voters does, but also most people don't know that you are a nonpartisan organization, which is critical right now. So tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, it definitely is critical now more than ever. And just to give a little bit of background, so the League of Women Voters began with fighting for the right to vote. So it's been around, like you said, for over 100 years there. So once women, and not all women, had the right to vote, League leaders realized that voters must be educated on the issues. So we've always been at the forefront of leading this movement. As you mentioned, the League is a nonpartisan grassroots organization. It's working to protect and also expand voting rights to ensure that everyone is represented within our democracy. So, as saying goes, words might be modified, but the League remains true to its values from its beginning and origin. And then, as our CEO says, we are nonpartisan, but we aren't neutral. So we are fierce defenders of the right to vote, the right to be heard, and the right to live in a country where democracy defines our future.
Absolutely. I mean, I think most people don't know, and you're in California, as am I, that women fought and won for the right to vote in California 12 years before Susan B. Anthony. So California's been leading the way for quite a bit, quite a while. So I want to talk about, like, what do we see? What does the League of Women Voters see as the biggest threat to voting rights now, nationally, both nationally and then here in California?
So in terms of the biggest threats, right now, what's top of mind for us is mis and disinformation. So it's that education piece of really empowering voters. So that's where we ideally can step in and not only provide that education, but also build confidence in people who have never voted before. Having a friendly face, ideally join them at voter registration all the way through the process. It always starts with making a plan to vote. That's something that we really push as well, because once people have a plan, they're more likely, and studies have shown, to show up and cast that ballot. So it starts, for example, we do lots of tabling in our communities. That's where that chapter model really comes in as well. There's hundreds of chapters of leagues across the United States. So there's 750 of those.
Woo!
So we're just one in Greater LA, which is really exciting. But just to know that there's a power to this movement and that ideally the League can be your resource and trusted source to come back to when combating that mis and disinformation.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm familiar with League of Women Voters from doing work across the country. True story, we both got sued in like Kansas for registering voters, right? That went through, we were okay there. And then I know that League of Women Voters currently in South Carolina, we're at the forefront of fighting that Senate Bill 323. So again, more than that, the education piece is so critical, especially right now when we see so much disinformation. So I want to talk about women are the majority voters. Folks don't realize this. We are the majority voters, but we're still underrepresented in government. So talking about like any ballot initiatives that would help women level the playing field. I'm thinking in particular in California, that Prop 50 is League of Women Voters putting information out. How do you see that working?
Yeah, so just to take a step back, so the League of Women Voters doesn't have a position on Prop 50. And the reason for that is because the League of Women Voters does these large studies. They usually last like 7 to 8 years. There's a lot of work that goes into them where they want to fully understand an issue from every single angle. So one of the reasons Prop 50 was not decided to support it necessarily is because we had fought so hard for protecting independent redistricting.
Absolutely.
So at the same time that we're being nonpartisan and not taking position on that proposition necessarily, to your point, we're still completely sharing all information about how to register to vote, as well as neutral informational type explainers about what Prop 50 does, unbiased. So ideally, back to the misinformation, disinformation piece, there's a lot coming out right now about Prop 50 from both sides that isn't necessarily fact-based. So ideally, the League can be that neutral stance where people can come receive information, and make an educated decision. So I agree with you. We do need to get women into elected offices and appointments across the state
Appointments, yes,
and in
across the
LA.
state.
But
Yeah.
we don't necessarily see the one-to-one with Proposition 50 in this case. This year.
Right. And I appreciate, and I know most people are like, you should take a stand. I appreciate the way the League of Women Voters focuses on their mission, right? Continues to focus, which is nonpartisan, truth-based information, and then let the voter make their own decision. I personally think that's like critical at this moment as we move forward. And I'm going to say I'm biased. I'm yes for Prop 50, but League of Women Voters is staying true to your mission of education, information. Let the voter decide, which is essentially still defending democracy, letting the voter decide. I want to talk about how does the League of Women Voters balance it? Because I'm having a hard time, right? How do we balance the nonpartisan as we get more polarized? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. So it comes back to focusing on the issues, right? So the league prides itself on conducting those studies in depth before developing positions. So kind of like what I shared already. And we just want to empower people to make those informed decisions. So ideally, by breaking down these information barriers and spreading education, we build up voter confidence. So hopefully you don't feel too strained with too much heaviness during this time when things are especially divisive. And I would say nonpartisan organizations can be an underutilized resource to just support in times like this, where it is a lot at once. But powering yourself with the facts, I would say,
Yes.
is what gives
And
me
trusted sources. Legal
yes,
Women-
trusted
trusted.
sources and facts. And also using your platform, right? You
Yes.
created a spot like this for conversations like this. So hopefully, if some of these words connect with a listener, they can also do research afterwards and connect with a group near them.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you that my first encounter, I'm going to call it an encounter with the League of Women Voters volunteer was at my temple. Her name is Monica. And she was like, Emmy, you're doing Women's March Foundation. Why haven't you reached out? She had voter registration forms in her car. Like she was ready to go. It was like, wow. Like she basically hosted a voter registration drive at our temple. So
Yeah.
I just thought like, wow, trusted source again in the community. So I totally appreciate that. As we head into like special elections and into 2026, what do you think is the most proven or currently the most effective way of reaching voters? The new voters are what like worries me and keeps me up at night.
Yeah, in terms of reaching first-time and infrequent voters, it really is that personal and like relational outreach. So even the story you shared, the league showing up in your community, asked, invited. Sometimes we source those opportunities ourselves, but we want to meet people where they're at and make it feel comfortable and organic. Also having, I would say, a diverse method of outreach. So we do our best on social media. We have our national league, which shares a lot of great resources on Instagram. We also have our local chapters, social media accounts as well. So please keep an eye out for that.
Yes.
Another thing we do is at the end of the day, the League of Women Voters is also a member-based organization, right? So we're empowering our members to be that peer-to-peer type of outreach for us as well. So a lot of these long-time, year-long members are our best method of communication.
And that's a great point because I think we forget that it's a member organization. How does one become a member?
You can find us at lwv.org. It'll match you there because that's our national website to a local chapter near you. So from there, it's super easy. You'll be added to all the lists and get amazing resources and then also be able to empower your networks to vote, right? Share that education with others. And I think something else really exciting that the league introduced relatively recently is a membership. Like it lets you pick how much you'd want to pay, if that makes sense.
Oh, nice. It's a sliding scale. So it picked
Sliding
a
scale.
sliding scale.
Sliding scale membership.
Here come the holidays. I'm eyeing a few relatives, so I'm going to buy a membership so we can have
me too.
So we can have some trusted sources of information to empower us as we get into special elections, obviously this year, but 2026 is going to be another election year. I know that we're all gearing up. I want to talk about how is League of Women Voters working with, I'm going to say, the new feminist movement, because I think that we have been League of Women Voters has been at the forefront. And I'm seeing a different type of movement around women voters. What are you seeing?
Yeah. So when you say new feminist, can you speak a little bit more to
Yeah.
that? Like what you
Yeah.
mean by it?
Yes. So, for example, I'm the old feminist. I see you as that new for passing the torch. There are young women out there getting involved, and the view that people have of a feminist looks more like me. And so I do think that I am seeing a lot of energy from younger women that understand that their future is at stake. And I see it. But what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I would say passing the torch is the perfect analogy because I really think, and this goes for any community-based organization, right? You really need to develop a leadership pipeline. And that does start as small, or not small, as
Early.
introductory, as internships, right? So I started with the league as a little intern when I went to college, and they do a great job of building out relationships with our local universities. So that's one great way to just bring youth in the door and really utilize their skills, which includes social media, communications, everything that's on the pulse culture-wise, to your point, about what a new feminist movement looks like, comes from the youth and
Absolutely.
interns as well. I would say from there, it's really about keeping them as members, right? How do we transform these interns and empower them to take a seat at the table, whether that is a board member or a committee chair within organizations like our own? So I'd say that. I would also say meeting youth where they're at. So one of my favorite opportunities was getting to table and pre-register voters at CSU Northridge, which is a school I'm an alumni of. So it was perfect, full circle. I got to meet and speak to a bunch of other young Latinas specifically for that day that were there for a conference. And yeah, just getting girls to pre-register to that.
It's
That
critical.
is where we start,
Yes.
right?
So finding the opportunities, bringing in the interns, and then continuing to build that base of leadership is critical. All right, we're going to close it up because we've got a bunch of stuff we've got to talk about today. So if listeners can take an action step after this conversation, what should it be and where can we join you?
I'll give you two very complementary action steps. One, research. You don't need to be a member even, but research and get connected to your local league at lwv.org. Another action item I'm going to give you today is build a voter plan. Make a plan to vote. And a lot of us, it just might be intuitive. For some people, it's not. So contact your friends, contact your family, make voter plans together, and encourage your community members to do the same. It really starts small, like that, starts with a plan, and it ends with that ballot in your mailbox or at your polling station. So yes, please.
Yes. All right. Thank you for joining us, Carla. We are definitely need a plan to vote in your community, and we're going to do this. We're going to continue on with what's coming up next in the crazy times of ICE raids. Stay tuned. So for our segment on Women's Rights Watch, we're talking about South Carolina Bill, Senate Bill 323, which what it was proposing was criminal. So the South Carolina bill failed, and that's a good thing. What it proposed was horrifying. This bill would have made abortion equivalent to homicide. That means that a woman or anyone helping her would face up to 30 years in prison. This bill was originally introduced in February of 2025 and reintroduced October 1st. I want to thank the League of Women Voters in South Carolina for making sure people were aware of this and so that they were able to fight back this regressive bill. So the bill would have criminalized the possession of abortion pills, even sharing information online. It it would have opened up the door to banning birth control by redefining contraception. It even targeted IVF by defining embryos as children, as people. So let's just say it's again, it failed. It failed, but we can't be fooled and we can't let up. We know that they're going to continue to reintroduce these types of bills. The fact that it even got close to being passed, the fact that it even had to be reintroduced should scare the hell out of us realistically, because it's part of their playbook. And part of their playbook is to introduce the most extreme bills again and again until one sticks or until we get tired of fighting back. They are relentless on controlling women's bodies, relentless on passing regressive laws, but we've got to be relentless as well. And I know we are, so we're going to continue to fight back. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think we should be doing to understand why they do this, right? So I think the urgency here is to continue to talk about what is happening at different levels. I know that there's a government shutdown, there's ICE, there's military deployment, but then in the background, what happens is that women's rights and now voting rights are always on the chopping block. So continuing to stay vigilant, because it isn't just about one state in South Carolina. It's actually a national strategy. And so when we talk about what should we be doing, well, we should be fighting state to state for reproductive rights, for voting rights, because at this point, this is what they've told us. They are going to send these things and pass them through, go state by state. So we're going to fight them state by state. So let's talk about what does that do? Well, we should be focused on educating folks on reproductive rights, on voter turnout. Yes, voter turnout in the states that are trying to really ban abortion, ban women from making their own choices. And so we've got to continue to fight back at the ballot box. So I'm going to say that. And I know I got some feedback around not everything can be fixed by the vote. I understand that. But for now, we've got to continue to turn out in numbers and droves. Statistics show that your party does not matter when it comes to reproductive rights. It should be a woman's choice, and it should have never been politicized. So we're going to leave it at that. Yes, I have some text messages coming in around why are we at the point of losing our vote? And the realistic part is that we're not going to allow that. We're not going to allow the Supreme Court and the states to continue to take us back decades, because when we lose our vote, we lose our voice, we lose our rights, we lose our power, we lose our future. It's all we've got. And so making sure that you continue to stay connected with organizations that are doing the work, connect with your congressional folks, with your senator folks, with your local elected officials. It's day 22 of the government shutdown. The electeds, the congressmen and senators are the only ones getting paid. So you should be contacting them as to what is happening and making sure that what was tried in South Carolina is now not tried in different states. So keeping an eye on that. We've covered a lot today. So the No Kings protest has everyone either participating or upset about it, but realistically, the power belongs to the people. The folks in DC, the folks in local office and state office work for the people. It's government for the people, by the people, for the people. So that's what it is. So the reminder is that to continue to stay engaged, to continue to document what is happening in communities and understanding that immigrants have rights too. So in that tune, we are closing this program with asking you to stay loud, asking you to share the episode, asking you to subscribe, and to be clear that you're going to continue to stay connected, because we have the power. We have the power, and we've got to use our voices to speak up, to stay loud, to take the power back. And to everyone listening, take action. Join a chapter of the League of Women Voters. Carla Fuentes was pretty clear. They've got chapters everywhere. They've got tools that you can use to register to vote and definitely to defend democracy. Yes. Thank you for showing up to protest, to make calls, to canvass, to donate, to volunteer. Everything that you're doing is much needed. And if you need to take a step back and not be involved in all the chaos for the moment, that's okay too. Realistically, we are going to need everybody in this fight. When you're ready, join us at the Women's Lounge next week on Wednesday. You know what time it is. It is time for the Women's Lounge, tackling all issues. And as you know, all issues are women's issues. Thank you. I'm Emiliana and Carla, your host. See you next week.